Hey Umbraco gang, it's me Warren, and today I want to show you what I've been hacking on something recently. So let's jump in and let's take a look. So I have a copy or fork of our Umbraco CMS repository. Just because I've been hacking, I didn't want to be doing this whilst in our live repository for now. There is this lovely code button that you've obviously seen on GitHub. You normally get the links of like to clone it down. I'm in this thing called a beta for GitHub called CodeSpaces, and I'm going to show you what this is all about. So let's click open with CodeSpaces. I've got no active CodeSpaces. I'm going to click new CodeSpace. And what this is doing, this is spinning up an environment for me to work in the browser. So hopefully this takes a minute or two. You can see some logs here. It's basically under the hood. This is a Docker container, which is going to be allowing us to do development for Umbraco CMS on the .NET Core branch. With .NET Core, obviously it's cross-platform, so I can run Linux and things like that, which what this code space is under the hood is a Linux image. You can see it's going through and fetching bits and pieces. Obviously this is a one-time process that it creates, like the Docker image and the container. Obviously subsequent times that I need to kind of jump into my code space, this is going to be a lot faster. So we'll leave that to just churn through, and then through the magic of editing, we will jump back once it's done. So now we've jumped into something that's probably a bit more familiar. This is, if you know, is Visual Studio Code, but this is running in the browser. So I've got extensions set up and things like that. So this dialog that I've just been prompted with is as I'm running a C# project, or a .NET Core project, I've enabled settings. So anytime someone opens the code space, that the C# extension is basically in allowing you to decompile other sources. Useful. Obviously the usual copyright stuff here, but yeah, for now we're going to click yes. And this is just like Visual Studio Code. So now let's go to a terminal, and let's change directory. We're going to change directory to source umbraco.web.ui.client, and then I can do obviously an npm install and start getting the project ready. So whilst that's doing that, as this is in the browser, I thought it would be fun to try this on an iPad. So whilst that npm install finishes up, let's cut, and we're gonna do the rest of development on an iPad today. Clap, clap, clap. Hopefully we got that good. Right, let's swipe up and log in. Okay, so I've got my iPad here, and I'm going to jump into the browser, and I've gone to GitHub /CodeSpaces, and I can see the code space that I've already opened over on the desktop a moment ago. So we can jump in here and click this. This is going to re-spin up the Docker instance if it hasn't shut down. So yeah, nice and quick. So whilst changing from desktop to iPad, I've done the npm client install, I've done the npm run build. Let's now do the .NET build. So I could, what could I do? I could, so this is, click up in here in the top right, go view, command palette, and I could, click run task. This is very fiddly on an iPad, but maybe I wouldn't use this day to day. Let's try one more time. Or not. Let's try again. Let's see if I with a little pencil. Run task. Okay. Oh, there we go. And what do I want to do? I want to do a .NET build. So down in the, can I drag this up? Yeah, perfect. So down in the terminal, this is just doing a .NET build against the solution. In our case, Umbraco-NETCore-only solution. So this is doing .NET build. Will do the .NET NuGet restore. So it's going to restore all the stuff whilst we do that. Again, the joys of CLI tools and fetching stuff out from the internet. Fingers crossed this shouldn't take too much longer. Yeah, we're getting some actual compilation warnings now from the CLI. And I think if we are good, this should wrap up building. Whilst maybe we wait for that and ignore some of these notifications whilst it's still compiling, I can talk about some of the pre-installed Visual Studio Code extensions. So I've configured this code space to have the Microsoft SQL Server extension. So what it's doing is obviously going and downloading the extension. But as this is Docker under the hood, we've got a SQL Server running in another layer of the Docker images. So there's one that is just a Linux-based SQL Server, and we've pre-configured the extension to talk to that SQL Server. So I can now click down, I can see the databases, and then I can see that I've got an Umbraco UniCore database. And if I click tables, you can see it's an empty database. So what we're going to do is, from the most recent versions of Umbraco, we've got the unattended installer approach. So what we're going to do is install Umbraco into this empty database, skip the installer process, and go straight to the back office. So with that being done, let's go and check on our terminal. Looks like it may have finished. Yep, that is looking good. Right. So next thing is what we're going to do. I'm going to show you a couple of things. So this dev container is kind of, or this .dev container folder is the magic that kind of glues GitHub CodeSpaces on our repository together. I'll quickly run through some of these files. So the Docker file is a typical Docker file that you probably may already know about. It's downloading Node, maybe the Azure CLI. So this was a base template that Microsoft is helping to give out. And then it's doing some NPM stuff and some permissions. And then we've got a Docker compose, because this is composing two images together. And it's obviously using our Docker file, and then we're setting some variables such as make sure to go install Node, use this specific Node version, and then it's configuring the network between the main image and the database image. So we've got an image from Microsoft, which is just a SQL Server, and I thought maybe it was in the Docker file, maybe it is. Or not. I can't remember where some of this stuff actually lives. I've played around with so many of these different files. We'll go back to it. The other noticeable thing in this file is these environment variables. So .NET Core, the configuration model can work from app settings JSON files, it can work from environment variables, it could come from another third-party source, but out of the box, most default .NET Core applications is app settings JSON and environment variables. So I have pre-configured our Docker image with some environment variables. Notice the connection string. So I've got a localhost server, which is talking to that database SQL Server image, and then obviously the Umbraco UniCore, and then my super secure SA and password. Then I've set the install unattended flag to true, so we're going to skip the installer and go straight into being able to attempt to log in. Up until recently, you would have to script or do something yourself in terms of generating that user to log in once you've added the database schema. So now I've got 3 new properties or values that I can set. I can set what the username is going to be, like the friendly name, not the username, the friendly name. That could be my name, that could be, in this case it's admin. And then the login or the email to log in with is going to be test@umbraco.com, and then I've set the password to be password1234, so we can log in. So with that, okay, this is where the SQL Server connection string stuff was. So this is where we're pre-configuring the Visual Studio SQL Server extension to talk to the SQL Server image. You can see that, it's localhost and it's SA and it's password. That's mostly what you need to know for now. Don't need to worry about too much of the other stuff. Anyway, that's how loosely how it works. You can go and take a look at the fork and how, or the PR that's in progress, if you want to have a nose around of how it's all working under the hood. Let's jump in and let's actually start running this. So obviously I can go to the debug and run, and then I can obviously hit play. This is going to do a .NET build, and then it's going to attach, it's going to do a .NET run of the Umbraco Web UI .NETCore project, and then attach the debugger to it as well. There we go, the debugger's starting to kick in. And then I'm just waiting. Oh, let's see if we can just make this big alert. Look at all these logs. So that is the database getting created and all the schema. We can go and check that in a second. And now it's Umbraco is starting to boot up. And it's telling me that I can go to localhost port 9000. But you're probably thinking, well, you're not in localhost. You're on the web. You're on the internet. How's that going to work? Well, through the magic of GitHub CodeSpaces, they do some magic port forwarding for us and give us a randomized-ish or GUID-like URL, and then they'll do some magic to port forward us into that localhost 9000 of our Docker image. Okay, so I don't know. Turned it off. Turn it back on again. The usual, what you do in IT, isn't it? When nothing works. So yeah, I'm back, and right, fingers crossed. I've got the debugger going again, and I'm going to go to this thing over here that looks like plugs or ports. This is going to show me the forwarded ports, and if I can drag again, click the little globe. Ta-da! Right, we got to the Umbraco installer, or post-install even, to say that we've got no content. I can then obviously log in. This is where I have to remember that the password was password1234, and the username being test@umbraco.com. So we can slide this back, or not. There we go, and then we can keep an eye on the debugger. Take a while. Clearly GitHub doesn't like me today for whatever reason, because previous tests this has been working smoothly as butter. Just reading the logs, skip loading. Okay, so it looks like maybe okay, request finally came in. Might be that the compiler flag or the debugger is trying to fetch remote DLLs and decompile them as well. Maybe we don't want to do that, but we can investigate later on. Not now, Sky News. Okay, so what I was trying to get to is that we could log into the back office Yeah, why not? Let's save it. Yeah, I can skip the tour. Then let's go and start creating a doc type, and then we can call this, I don't know, home, the usual. And then we can add a group, can't we? We can go content, and then we can add a property. Let's call this a header, and let's create a text box. Yeah, reuse the existing one, and let's make it mandatory, of course. And we're gonna give it allows root. I'm gonna save it. Then, so this would be useful for me now as someone on the CMS team, maybe, or someone who's a new contributor to the Umbraco CMS. Maybe you might not develop on an iPad, but the idea is that you could develop in the browser and maybe work on a bug or a small fix. Maybe there's something really niggling you, something in the back office UI, JavaScript based, or there's something maybe C# or .NET based. You can now obviously do that from the magic that is GitHub CodeSpaces. So, but let's carry on. I just want to show that we can actually create something. Home. Hello. Well, it's Warren. Yeah, that sounds good enough to me. We'll save and publish. Not the most exciting Umbraco content type or document type. Just a text box. Could obviously be a rich text editor, block list editor, form picker, the usual. We all know and love about Umbraco. Did we put anything in the template? No, again, so this is going to be tricky when the keyboard takes up so much space. At model.header, because that was the name of my property, and then let's, I don't know, yeah, no, that would do. I'll just save it. I could obviously put some HTML, I could put it in the H2 tag and all that jazz. Again, the usual stuff that we all know and love. And then I can go back to home. If I click it, click info, load it up. Hello world, it's Warren. So, as with the debugger, I could, I'm just trying to think, is there something easy that I can attach a breakpoint to? Let's say, it's not that folder, is it? Everything's got moved around. Umbraco web. Is it? We could do a web API. No, it's not there. Things move around too much for me. Umbraco core. Editors, that's the one. Again, maybe it wasn't the one I was looking for. Let's just find something I can easily find. There's a health check. There's a check. Here we go. Folder and file permissions check. Alright, let's drag the terminal down a bit. And we could put a breakpoint on. Again, if I can hit the magic. There we go. So we could probably now go and hit this breakpoint and do some debugging on the browser, on an iPad. This is still blows my mind. Yes, we want health checks, don't we? So go to settings, health check. I can't remember what one I was trying to check. What was it? Permissions, folder and file permissions check. Permissions. Check group. There we go. I can see a nice big red dot on my other tab to say, look, that the debugger has hit the breakpoint. I can now do breakpointy things. Obviously, view variables, add stuff to the watch, and then step over and step into. And then let's just continue. But yeah, that shows the debugger basically working. Everything's fine, obviously. So that was it. That's my hack. That's what I've been working on this week in the background, playing around with GitHub CodeSpaces, making it easier for new contributors to make their first contribution without having to set up SQL Server, Node, and all that jazz. Basically, the idea is that you will be able to click Open in CodeSpaces, have the environment practically set up for you. Maybe we might be even able to skip the npm install, anything else, maybe even the .NET build, and then you can just go straight to the debugger and attach. But yeah, that's it. Hope you like this demo. Give me any feedback or any thoughts you got, and then let's carry on hacking. Bye!